The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Good morning, Jamie. How are you this morning?
I am lovely this morning.
Oh,
Got
that's
my
wonderful.
coffee.
You have your coffee. You're all ready for fall.
Fall is my favorite time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to share with our audience today, this was a lovely card that Allison sent me that I got yesterday. So I had to match.
She's matching her card. Yeah.
How lovely that is.
I love the coordination. I would love to have a sponsor from the agency that makes this card, but I buy these cards all the time. It was a Shark Tank project, which is the Love Pop company.
Yes,
and I delight in
not sponsored. I just love your product.
Yes. So if you're interested in sponsoring the Love Sweetie podcast, you know, but yeah, really pretty. But it was really a gesture of appreciation to Jamie for working on this podcast with me and putting in the time and the effort, and it's really valued. And so I knew we'd talked about in previous episodes that fall was her favorite season, and as a Starbucks girl, I was like, pumpkin spice latte is coming out, so I'm gonna make sure we kick off the fall season.
Oh yeah, it's not fall here yet. It's I just like to celebrate early. I'm one of those. But it was much appreciated, and I just wanted to let everyone know what a wonderful person she is.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And with that, we'll proceed into our two letters for today. They are both from Sweetie to various family members. Now, let's recap a little bit about what happened in the last episode, Jamie. Sweetie's planning something. First of all, it's the beginning of 1944. If you missed episode 18, Sweetie's starting to prepare for a trip she's going to take.
Yes, this is a trip. And of course, in 1944, planning for a trip was much different than it is now.
Yeah.
So she's planning on and meeting her in-laws for the first time.
She's a little nervous about that.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
And also this, we get to see, just what Sweetie has to go through to prepare for this trip.
To get ready for this. Yeah, she's a bit intimidated. We heard that in previous episodes' letters. She seems more anxious about it today. In the next episode after this one, we are going to have the content of that trip. But this is still that moment of anxiety of, wow, I'm going to the East Coast for the first time. It's going to take a day to get there by train. She'd already talked about the schedules in a previous episode. Yeah. And I'm going to meet those in-laws, and I hope we get along. So that's the content of today's episode. A little bit of anxiety. Definitely some anxiety from Sweetie, but also a really big look into everyday life in Ottumwa by the time she gets to 1944. With that, I'll get started with the first letter. Ottumwa, Iowa, March 1st, 1944. Dear Mama and Papa, we got your letter day before yesterday, and we're glad to hear you're okay. Your babies do keep you busy and interested, don't they? I haven't written to Jean for quite a while. Would you send my last letter and this one on to her? I'm really ashamed of myself, but my time is all taken up from 8 to 5. And then I have dinner to get, dishes to do, and then sew. On the dress, darn socks, gather up the laundry, iron always something. I'm sending Lou up to Mrs. Corey's house tonight to borrow her sewing machine to bring down and really get the clothes in order. The laundry comes tonight, and I think I'll be able to do the ironing and the mending at once. I hope I'm sending some clothes to the cleaners in the morning. With luck, I should be able to do away with 11th hour rush. Before I forget, I've got a darn nice family, and one that I'm really proud of, but I can't take them with me to Philadelphia. How about some good pictures? I have good ones of Jean, so don't worry about her. I need some good ones of Sister and Bill and kids. I have a billfold size copy of the one of Florence and Bill. Do you have some more recent that I could take? I have Frank in his uniform taken at Lacona, good ones. More of Maida. Do you have any of her? I need good ones of Mom and Daddy. Any others you find that you'd like to send, do. I want to take pictures of everybody, even Jeff. To be safe, I'm going to take both pair of glasses with me. Remember when I sent you my glasses the last time I sent them in my black case that you kept there? Will you send it with the pictures? Our second allotment check came today for $50. That makes a total of $150 received. Helps out quite a lot. I've been making so many lists of things that have to be done that I'm nearly wacky. We're working awful hard at the office trying to get things in shape so I can leave, and when I have to go home to work too, I'm just about whooped. Send the letters on to Jean, please, and try to explain how hard it is and write what I'd give to have her here now. You'll never know. Love, Sweetie.
I feel so much for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I whenever I plan for a trip, we plan for a trip, and I do visit my family in Ohio occasionally, and it's about a 4-hour drive.
Yep.
And there's so much you have to think about.
So much.
And this is the first time that she's having to take on this kind of responsibility. I can imagine that you can see, like, she's just like, I'm anxious. I have all this stuff to do. I'm still working.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel for her.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because I never really understood this as a kid. My mom, when we would go on family vacations, would be cleaning so much before we left. And I'm like, this isn't part of the vacation itinerary. We're packed. We're ready to go. I get it. Clothes should be ready to go. But otherwise, I think there became a running joke between my sister and I. Why are you refilling the salt and pepper shaker? Is that really, to that level of, but it was that idea of wanting to come back to everything ready to go. So when you got back and you were tired, you wouldn't have to go around and be like, oh, here we go again, with everything. And I get that now, of course, but didn't back when I was a kid. So yeah, definitely sympathize with Sweetie here. And she's working, and not all of the women, at least prior to the World War II, a lot of them would be stay at home. And the men would be at work. Now the men are in the service, the women are at work, and they're doing this. So it's just that new dynamic. And that's going to become rather permanent for a lot of people as we leave the 40s. Women are now used to working and balancing. So I think this is probably one of the biggest moments in history where we start to see that shift. We get the idea of the Rosie the Riveter coming in, which is really, really great. The power of the women to be able to balance. But it is exhausting. It absolutely is exhausting. And she doesn't have any children yet. This is just the one home, the small home for the newlyweds. There's a lot of mending going on. I don't want to give away information for the next letter, but the word darn appears across these two letters a lot in different ways. So if you want to play a game with yourself in this episode, count the number of times across the two letters that Sweetie uses the word darn. It's going to happen a lot. And I thought we would also mention real quick, just for people that missed some of the earlier episodes, when she mentions that she's taking the photos, and then she mentions, I'm even taking a photo of Jeff. Jeff is the dog.
Jeff is the dog.
Jeff is the dog. So
Jeff is such a great name for a dog.
Yeah. So we like Jeff. Jeff is cool.
Jeff is like a when we talk about Jeff and he's referenced in the letters, it just seems like he's a person.
It does.
It really seems like if you didn't know that he was a dog, you could easily assume that this was a person.
I think I can bring a picture of Jeff up on the screen here, just because who doesn't want to see a picture of the dog? All right, so just because we're talking about Jeff, Jamie, I'll bring up a picture of Jeff so everybody can see this really cute dog that we've seen before. Originally, I had thought that this was a photo of Chester and Jeff, because it very much looks like Chester.
It looks like Chester.
This is actually Frank. I've been corrected since then. This is an older picture of Frank, slightly older than he is in 44, but he's standing there with the dog.
So that's Frank, because we had worked on the assumption that this was Chester. You can see the family resemblance. He definitely takes after his father.
He takes after his father for sure, but that is Frank and Jeff out there. So yeah, just figured I'd take the moment and be like, let's bring the dog back up on the screen.
We love
who doesn't want to see little Jeff.
Well, this letter, and we talk about the allotments that she's receiving. This is money that was issued to married couples.
Now he is a
And
dependent. Yeah.
yes, and now that she, and that's really
Mhm.
one less thing for them to worry about, which
Right. Little
is good.
extra coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. But she's definitely, and it comes across in this letter, especially when I was reading this, I was like, she's like going nuts.
Hmm.
You can feel like she's worried
Yeah.
about like
A little
making sure she
nervous.
has everything. She's even like, and this is another thing. I'm like packing extra contacts in case I lose one.
Hmm.
You're like, oh, you know what? What if I want to clean something? What if I break my glasses? I need to bring all the pictures.
Yeah. Bring the
Yeah.
extra set of glasses. Yeah. The pictures. Definitely. She wants to show off her family. I think she said that about people at the base when they got that great picture of Bob in uniform. When she first went to the base, I want to show off my brother. I want to show off my family. She certainly wants to do that,
Yeah. She
when she
definitely
gets to
she has a great
yeah.
sense of family pride.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes, but I think in our next letter,
Mhm.
this one is to Mar sister.
This is to sister.
Sister and
Yep.
Bill and the kids.
Mhm. Ottumwa, Iowa, March 2nd, 1944. Dear Jean, Margaret, Bill, and kids, I've been so busy lately that I haven't been able to call my soul my own. To begin with, the trip to Philadelphia is only 9 days off, and not only do I have to get clothes ready, cleaned, mended, pressed, and packed, but I've got to check everything here and see that it will not be too difficult for somebody else to find what may be needed while I'm gone. I have already gotten permission to leave, if I can whip things into shape. We've had to clean the shelves of all the old forms, take inventory, restock, log, and label all the new supplies. We've had 3 pickup truck beds full of junk brought in to us to be sorted and salvaged, if it is still salvageable. I've worked myself into a state of collapse, and I've had the most vicious disposition towards some of these hens out here. If anybody looks at me cross-eyes, I'd just as soon bust 'em one as look at 'em. Half my trouble is to get up bright and early in the morning and walk into this mess. Believe me, this is no exaggeration. There's so much stuff on top of the files, under the tables and desks, that the janitor has found it too much trouble to sweep. We're living in dust and grime that has accumulated during the past 4 weeks. The dirt is so thick that when I get home at night and wash to go to bed, not only is my face dirty, but by looking at the high water marks on my wrists, I can tell just how many times during the day I've had to wash my hands. I just want to pause here because she's talking about some of the activities at the base in the course of this letter because of that stress with this upcoming trip to Philadelphia. So the janitor, there's so much stuff all over the place. It's so busy in this office, the janitor can't even sweep
He
the
can't even
floor.
get in there to help out.
Right. And so you can just imagine the frazzled nature. Now, Sweetie had pretty curly hair and it's short. And I'm thinking, okay, because I have very curly hair. And when it's short, it just goes out, right? And you get like that frizziness. I
Mhm.
can only imagine because she's saying, they're trying to dig under things to get through things, dust. She can see. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they can see the high water mark on their
Yeah.
arms from how many times they had to keep washing their hands. So you can just imagine like these like sort of soot-faced, like the kids in Mary Poppins, right? When they do Chim Chim Cheree, soot-faced hair everywhere. And then being like, I have to go back to meet the in-laws. you know?
And it seems like if we saw what they say, already gotten permission to leave if I
Mhm.
can whip things into shape.
Right. It's still
So if she doesn't have
contingent.
things whipped into shape, does that mean
Mhm.
that they're going to be like, there is no way you're going anywhere?
Yep. Yeah. It's a war. It's
Hmm.
still a war. Like we need to get this stuff done.
Hmm.
And 1944, we were talking in the was it 2 episodes ago, in episode 17,
Yeah.
that 1944, we're going to see a huge acceleration going on in the European theater. And so all of this work domestically to keep things in order, I don't know exactly what they were salvaging as well. That's a question that I have from the trucks. 3 truckloads of things that could be salvaged. What are you salvaging?
Yeah.
Like,
Office supplies, military
yeah,
supply, like,
things on shelves, files, dusting, like all of this kind of stuff. Because usually she took secretary, basically classes that secretaries would take. She took a lot of the stenography classes and things. So our suspicion at the base is, oh, Sweetie, I love that she details this because I think the mentality is that We've seen it in films that the women are at the base and they're at the typewriters. They're very, very rapid, like they're court reporters or something like that, and the stenographers that we see in courthouses. And they're all very attentive to detail, and they've got a neat little stack of papers and files, and things are being passed off. That's Hollywood.
Yeah.
She's giving us the other side of things. She's not saying that she's even typing anything or writing anything. They're just trying to get to everything, and it's a mess. And I love that we get to see the reality of this and what they're dealing with. But the line with the janitor is just like, I give up. What if he sweeps something that was needed?
Right. And they were last episode they were gonna punish Lou for having no button.
Right.
Like, so if the janitors gets they don't fool around. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're getting to see what she's having to go through.
Yeah.
Not only at home, but what
at work.
they're required from her at work. Yeah.
Yeah. And what simultaneously all the other women, all the other people these offices are going through. So now when I watch these scenes in movies where it's very tidy and neat, maybe I'll write to the director and be like, hey, let's be real here. We're all still human. This is too tidy for what was going on in 44. Here's the actual thing that was going on with the women. And I'd love to just see more of the reality of this. But yeah, we'll continue with the letter here because now Sweetie's coming home from work and having to do more work. After that, I go home to get dinner, do dishes, and iron if the laundry has come, mend if the ironing is done, clean if Lou has duty, sew on that, dress if there is a moment's opportunity, and the rest of my leisure time, I darn socks, darn socks, darn socks, darn socks. Darn, I'm really getting in a rut. This is one of the greatest things.
And this letter, I want to point out, this letter was the day after the letter she wrote to her parents.
Yeah.
So she's you can see how it's kind of funny how she talks to mom and dad, and then how she's talking to sisters. She's like, I darn socks, and I darn socks, and I darn socks.
I don't know about you, but
also I would like to point out this is maybe the first time that Sweetie has sworn in a letter.
Her way of swearing in these letters. Oh my gosh. Can I just tell you, because she's typing this out and she writes this pattern and it's across the top of the keyboard. So I've been transcribing a lot of letters heading into future years. Whenever she does this, it's the same pattern. So this isn't like you're just at a keyboard. I want to point this out because it's just really funny to me because I'm very precise with transcribing exactly the things that she's showing. She's not just doing this whole, thing on the keyboard and just hitting whatever key. It's a very precise pattern. It's always the pound sign, the dollar sign, the percentage sign, and an underscore. And then it almost always is almost precisely that. I think recently in the letters I've seen, she got rid of the cent sign, or maybe she had a different typewriter that didn't have it there, the different models for the different keys that they were using. But she goes across, and if you look at your keyboard, if anyone's at their computers, and you see the pound sign's next to the dollar sign is next to the percentage sign. And by the way, that little caret gets used every now and then. She's going across. So you can imagine her at a typewriter. Imagine the sound of the typewriter, that click. Boom, boom, boom. This isn't, because you're not going to be as satisfied with this modern computer, and for all we know, it could also be the ribbon could be going. Right? So you might be ding, boom, 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 click, 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 click.
And she's like,
so that's the swearing that's going on. Now there could be expletives at the same time, but just to sort of just set the scene, this takes effort to do this with, it's not like a typo. There's for those listening audio only, it's going across the top of your keyboard for all the symbols for 10 of them in a row. In a certain pattern, and you can hear that typewriter click, click, and she's striking those keys really hard. And then she's talking about darning socks. I don't think I've ever darned a sock in my life.
I just buy new socks.
Yeah, this is a thing of the past. It can stay in the past.
Yeah,
this can stay in the past. I mean, I'm sure maybe some people still darn socks. Yep. No. This is like sewing the stockings at college. No.
You do you.
Yeah. This is a part where Sweetie would have loved to have a better answer than darning socks, clearly. And then she uses the darn the 2 ways. So, and I think there's still more coming. So keep counting the darns if you're playing that game through this episode mentally. Well, I've got a lot of work to do. In spite of the fact that I swore I'd not have any 11th hour rush around, I started days ago, got the suitcases down, dusted them, and opened them. Each time that something is clean and mended, and I'm sure we're going to take it along, I go and drop it in the suitcase. I've sent clothes to the cleaners, reknitted stocking, checked buttons on shorts, darned socks, and still it is just a drop in the bucket. This is going to be more of a worry than a pleasure trip. She's checking the buttons, Jamie.
Well, yeah.
Just in case.
You
might
gotta
need some gum.
And I definitely sympathize, and I think a lot of other people can sympathize with her in this 11th hour rush.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to get stuff done, and you feel like, and you really, I promise myself every time I'm gonna get started sooner, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely we have to appreciate that.
Lou is looking forward to it in such a big way that it is a shame for me to gripe about the necessary work, and so I've tried to keep quiet. He knows how hard I have to work out here. Last night I was so pleased to have him do the dishes while I went to bed. I know. How long will that last? That's what I thought. So I made the best of it. He is darn nice about helping. And there are a few times at night that I do the dishes by myself. He's helping me decide what clothes to take and what not to take, though I swear some things he dreams up would put Bing Crosby to shame. We've had quite a bit of luck, though in our plans. I found out that reservations on the train should have been made 3 weeks in advance. I made them on the 17th, that is to say, there were 17 days left, and get them in. We'll leave here at 5:15 a.m. Saturday morning on the 11th, and we'll get to North Philadelphia Station at 5:42 Sunday morning. Just a little more than 24 hours. I thought it would take at least a day and a half. We've had 2 checks from the Treasury Department, allotment checks, one of them for 2 months and one of them for 1 month, a total of $150. Lou got flight orders, and if our luck still holds, he should get his flight skins this payday. Flight skins, pay for putting in so many hours of flying during 1 month. And that should amount to about $70. My usual pay of $61 should give us enough money to come and go safely on, and then have some left over. I've enough annual leave that I'll really be taking a vacation with pay. My check will be here waiting when I come back, and because of a shortage of space and feeding facilities out here at the station, I think Lou will be put on commuted rations, and while it will be more work to get his meals at home, it will also be, or at least it should be, a little more cash in our jeans. A lot of things here with just the planning of the logistics of the trip. Reservations on the train should have been made 3 weeks in advance. I think this makes sense. Usually, if someone's flying, we're definitely going to do things much more in advance. But she got married in like 3 months. The wedding was just in December. So, and we're not quite sure. The base is still saying, yeah, you can take vacation if, all your work's done.
Yeah.
So all these contingencies are making things more complicated. But it sounds like they're okay there. And she's like, okay. It's going to head into North Philadelphia to the station there. And then she's going to have to go from North Philadelphia to Upper Darby area today in Delaware County, which today that's going to take probably at least an hour if we were driving. So we'll wait. Yeah. And that's traffic. Because you have to cross through the city. So for the people that are listening outside of the state of Pennsylvania, when you go to Philadelphia, North Philadelphia is somewhat closer to like the New Jersey side of things. And then if you imagine like that side, you have to cross basically through the city to get to South Philadelphia. South Philadelphia is like the Eagles Stadium and things like that. And Delaware County is a lot closer in the vicinity. If she was going into South Philadelphia, this would be a little different, a little closer to getting into Delco or Delaware County. But North Philadelphia, that's not going to be the end of the trip. She's still going to have to make her way. They're going to have to make their way from North Philly. And then the checks, they're talking about the allotments, of course. And I love that she defines a term that otherwise would be very, very difficult outside of the military to really understand here, the flight skins.
That was nice. I'm glad that she did that.
Yeah, like flying overtime. It's like overtime pay for flying. Yeah, so that was interesting to hear that. We know the train tickets from the previous episode were about $70.
Mm-hmm.
So at least she knows she's covered there. But if you're on a train for a day, you're probably going to get hungry at some point, or there's probably going to be a stop somewhere where you can get something. So,
or a dining car.
or
Yeah.
dining car. Yeah.
That you'd be able to pay for meals and stuff. I would
Mhm.
love, I've never been on a train. I would love to, this is really
Oh,
interesting
yeah.
to me. I would love to take a train. And I
Mhm.
think too, we should talk about, she's planning for when she comes back too.
Yeah.
This is what we do
Right.
as women, like she's not only planning for the trip, but then when we get
Mhm.
home, because once we get home,
Right.
we got to jump right back into like
Right
life.
back to it. Yeah.
So yeah, so she's like, we'll have some money when we get home, and that's good. And then
Mhm.
too, remember we were talking about rationing and rations
Yes.
in a previous episode, and so when she talks about Lou being on commuted
rations. Yeah.
I'm guessing that that's like his rations are then maybe sent home with him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is that what you think
Something
that
with
is?
it in relation to the commute. That is an interesting phrase. It says, "Well, it'll be more work to get his meals at home." So
She will have to prepare his food.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like he's taking his meals at the base. That there's an overwhelm that's going on at
They probably want
NAS
people
Ottumwa.
like that are married to go home.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
your wife.
Yeah.
Like here's but that's
Mhm.
but yeah, so that's an interesting thing as well. So she's already, and I want to point out too,
Mhm.
in these letters today, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure about how else, but she has not yet said, now y'all aren't writing me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Did you
She's so
notice that?
distracted by work. She hasn't
Yeah, she is
demanded her usual letter.
definitely in a different headspace.
She definitely is. Yeah.
I've not done too badly, I guess. I'll have to buy a pair of black shoes, some stockings and gloves, and possibly a slip or two, and I'm set. It will be the first time since we've been married that I've bought clothes of any kind. Lou bought a new pair of pants to wear with his dress jumper, thank goodness. He washed them in Mrs. Langford's washing machine downstairs and started them through the wringer, with the string in back going in first. The string caught on the wringer and kept going round, and the pants couldn't follow, and consequently he tore the eyelets all out. There was a 3-cornered hole in the seat, and the poor pants were so thin they just split out in the seat. I fixed them, and did a darn nice job on them. Darn nice, but even so, they were not in good enough condition to take home with him. Thank God for good luggage. I'd give anything if Jean were here to help me. I'm going to need the 10 days for a rest cure after so much work and exertion. This has been going on for days, too. Jean, do you think it's at all possible to find Chamberlain's lotion there? Would you try, please? And if you can, would you try to send it in time to take along? We can't get it here. Love, Sweetie.
Oh, sweetie.
Oh, man.
I feel like your anxiety. I
Mhm.
feel it, hon. But this is lovely, and she understands too, like how important this is to Lou.
Yeah, and I love the description of the washing machine because I've experienced that. We still experience this today with certain, especially the older washers that are not all like tumble based, which is, I don't know what they call, whatever the component is that things can get caught on in the middle of like the washing machine.
Yeah.
I'm always concerned about like spaghetti strap, like tops and things, like getting hooked on it and then just spinning around and around and around. So we can perfectly visualize. Lou, I think there's some things that I don't want to put more work on, sweetie, but maybe you should not be handling for yourself.
Well,
right now.
and I've seen like my husband do this as well. Sometimes it's just like, well, it doesn't seem to be working. Maybe if I just keep going. Maybe if I just go harder.
Yep.
Oh crap!
Fine. Yeah.
And he's not the one that has to fix it.
Right.
Just saying. But she probably was like, hey, can you take on some of these things? Or he probably was also trying to help.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine that situation.
Yeah, we can just visualize it really well. And then with that, she basically signs off to Jean and she's like, okay, we're 9 days away. And then I'm going to head to Philadelphia.
Oh, goodness.
First trip to Philly.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to the Philadelphia trip.
Yeah. It's always when you have a fish out of water tale. And in this case, she's still working at Naval Base with no ocean in the state. With the shore patrol. I love that from the previous episode. For what shore? The bank of the river in Ottumwa. Yeah, that's pretty much all of the shore she's going to see. But there's also the stress she's not talking about. I think we were talking about in the last episode the things that are absent
from view are sometimes even more important than the things that are. To my knowledge, she's never gone this far away from home before. And that's got to be stressing her out as well. She's not mentioning it to her parents. She's putting on that brave face. She's probably excited to see the ocean because they're close enough to New Jersey. There's an expectation of there's probably going to be some sightseeing and things around here, and we're definitely going to get to see a new area. And the idea of Philadelphia, too. Ottumwa's a city right now, but it's a city in Iowa. This is a whole different league for Philadelphia as the East Coast cities, the original. They had more time to develop, simply. They were there for the revolution. Philadelphia was founded, I think, at least in the 1600s. So you've got a line of cities on the East Coast, and she's within proximity to all these other cities. So it's potential, though Elizabeth's probably not going to share her gas rationing book to get there. But feasibly, you could get Boston, New York, Philly, head down into Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Richmond. They're all in a line, and each of these cities is very, very large compared to what's being seen in Ottumwa. And I think the other thing I wanted to check my notes here is Jean has now moved because she's saying, can you find this here? Yeah, so for many, many of the early letters, Jean had been living in Iowa City. So Iowa City's the original capital for the state of Iowa because they'd only settled so far on land, and then they kept settling west. And they're like, well, we should put the capital more in the center. Makes sense.
Makes sense.
And this happens pretty rapidly in the 19th century in the history of Iowa. And they move it to Des Moines, which is right in the center. Jean's now in Des Moines. And she's been there for a little bit. We've seen it in the letters, but I think it's good to note that for a while, Jean had been in Iowa City because she'd been at nursing school, but she graduated. And she's going to call Des Moines her home for some time. And so Sweetie's going to have access. Now, that's the biggest city in Iowa. So she's asking for this lotion. I can't find it here. And I want to take, she's probably thinking, why is it important to have this lotion? It's probably a gift. It's probably something special, to take over to Philadelphia to the in-laws.
Definitely seemed not so much like casual conversations. It's like these all had purpose.
Yeah.
She needed to get things. She needed the picture. She needs the lotion. But I think that she's trying to put everything down and like talk about things because she's apprehensive and she doesn't want to burden Lou with that.
Yeah, she needs to get this out of her system because Lou's over the moon. He's like, I have my bride and I'm going to take her home to my parents, and aren't they going to be so proud that I got this girl, and she's wonderful, and she works hard, and she cares, and they're so in love. And he's just and he's like, I bought a new pair of pants. I'm doing my own laundry. That didn't go well. But, I'm going to have everything taken care of, and this is really great. You're right. And she's just writing to the others saying, I'm not gonna bring him down. He's like on this high because he's so excited. I can't possibly upset him. So yeah.
And it was this is definitely preparing me for that Philadelphia trip.
Oh yeah. I'm excited for that. Yeah. Now the Philadelphia letter is going to be the next episode of the Love Sweetie podcast. It's a very long letter, so don't fear. Sweetie's telling us exactly what it's like in Philadelphia in 1944, early in that year. But that's for the next episode because it is that long. So this episode is a little shorter, but I do have some really exciting news to share with the fans of the Love Sweetie podcast. So we have our very first guest that's going to be joining us in the podcast very soon. And keep an eye out for this as a bonus episode coming through for the podcast. We are going to be inviting Stephen Black to speak with us, and he is running the show over at the restoration efforts of the old administration building for NAS Ottumwa. So he's out in Iowa. They're putting in a ton of work. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to show everybody the NAS Ottumwa website so you can get an idea, a little sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about here. But they've put in a ton of work to restore. And of course, I've been, drinking out of my mug, but you can see a very clear picture here. They have a very lovely website that they've done, especially recently. They are trying to save the history of the base. So this is the base. Sweetie was talking about all the work that she was doing in this episode. They have an organization called Friends of NAS Ottumwa. And if you've ever been to a lot of national historic sites, it's very typical to call these organizations the friends of the thing that it is. Very, very much. A lot of work of volunteers. So if you're out in the area of either close to Ottumwa, Iowa, or even like just within the state of Iowa, and you happen to get to the southeast portion of the state, please try to support them. I went out there, and one of the first things I did before I even really considered doing this podcast over a year ago was to be where Sweetie was. And it was an absolute joy for myself and my father to reach out to the leadership there, to reach out to Stephen. And while it wasn't still open to the public, we were able to not only be on the ground of NAS Ottumwa, but to go into the building and actually walk around the rooms and see the progress with the collections that they're working through here. And it's a massive undertaking. So if people are looking to support the work there, I really encourage everybody to take a look at their site. We're going to hear a lot. I don't want to spoil things with what we're going to be talking with Stephen about, but we're going to be talking a lot about the full history of the base. It was only in operation really throughout the 40s. It's a limited base. Where I live, there's Willow Grove Naval Air Station, and it just more recently closed for operations as a Navy base. But Ottumwa was very limited and very focused on the World War II history. And you can see, I'm just going to their statement here about their vision. They're trying to preserve the history and save it for the future generations. They're saying that NAS Ottumwa graduated 4,626 new Navy pilots, and we're averaging 1,000 training flights a day. So we just had in the letter the flight skins, 1,000 flights a day for the training. So
it must have been those guys must have been very busy.
Very, very busy. Yeah. So just, I would just encourage everybody. Their Facebook group is very active and talks about events. And then, it is a 501c3 and nonprofit corporation. The only book about NAS Ottumwa, and we'll talk about this, I do have a copy of it, is this book, Carrier on the Prairie. The author has passed away at this point, but you can find copies of this in various places online. I love the title. Carrier on the Prairie, right? Where's the shore? We keep saying, where's the shore?
Yeah, where's the shore? There is no shore.
Mm-hmm. And then on the site, I love how they built it. Forgotten Bases of the Midwest, the restoration, and everything else. So we're delighted to have Stephen joining us as our first guest to talk about all of their efforts and the full history of the base out there.
Well, I think that will be a very lovely episode. But I think that brings us to the end of episode 19.
It does.
So we will see you next week.
See everybody next week.